seeing things most people wouldn't believe.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Brian at Brian's Tech Therapy. In today's session, I have a very special guest, good friend, content creator. Stop the FOMO. FOMO, how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you, Brian? What's happening, man?
I am very good. The topic of today's video, as you can tell by the thumbnail, is a topic that you thought up and you contacted me about. So I'm going to let you actually introduce today's topic.
Sure thing. So it is what is it? The future proofing illusion. I call it future proofing lies, but you felt it was a bit overstating
Aggressive.
it, right? Samsung never uses the word future proofing, but people always talk about, hey, I want to get an 8K TV because it's future proofing, right?
Yeah.
And so this applies to everyone who got a Samsung 8K TV in 2019, maybe 2020, 2021. In 2022, we have this first time ever Amazon partners with Samsung release 8K trailer of the very highly anticipated Lord of the Rings of Power. It's only a trailer, but it's an 8K. But here's the thing, and I got a conversation going. It's exclusive to only 2022 Samsung 8K TVs. And when I first saw it, wait, what? What about all the people that have 8K TVs from previous years? And before people say, well, maybe it's Amazon, no, it's on Samsung's own
Yeah.
Samsung TV Plus platform, video on demand. So they have full control. It's their platform. They produced it, right? And we're not going to get into is it a 4K native source, blah, blah, blah. We'll just talk about access. Those of you who have the QN900A or 800A from last year, or the QN900R or the QN900, you're like, wait, future proof. This is Samsung. It's not like LG's releasing this, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, clearly the TVs were not capable of processing 8K codec, whatever it is, AV1,
Yep.
or maybe some variation of AV1, or it can, but then Samsung locked you out, which is even worse, by the way. I would
Yeah.
rather it be a technology limitations. Then we could say, oh, it's an illusion. The 8K future proofing is an illusion because we don't know what technology brings. But if Samsung purposefully locked them out, then it's more of a lie because now they're just walling you out of their 8K content, even though it's only 2 minutes of a trailer. But still, what does this mean? So this is why we're here.
Well, the optics too, the way you presented it to me, which is I'd love for you guys to see how we all collaborate. We all help each other out. I just came off a live stream with FOMO, which I think will be up. Are you doing that live? Is it going to go up in public at some point?
Oh, it was live the whole time.
Yeah, yes. We did a live stream talking about this and we looked at the trailer, but it's the way we collaborate. He contacted me and he teased me. He basically said, hey, AK streaming is here. And the way he played it for me in terms of texting and then calling me was he led me to feel like a customer. Where I said, "Oh, 8K streaming is finally here," because we've talked about 8K. We thought discs would never be here, but we were all holding on for 8K streaming. And when he said, "Hey, look, we're gonna have 8K content Friday," and he paused, and I was like, "Okay, what are we doing?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's gonna be on the 900 and the 800B." And then I waited for his or his delay, and he's like, "The end." And I thought to myself, the future proofing, and I know a lot of people aren't going to feel sympathy for that group, but the bleeding edge that bought a 900A when it was released, and I think it might have been the end of 2018, 2019, you're talking about I don't even know, the price was absurd for the 65 inches.
Over $10,000.
Over $10,000. And if you bought that TV, you did say to yourself, okay, I'm buying bleeding edge. But at some point when that streaming shows up, because we're not using the HDMIs, I'm not worried about that. I'm going to be good to go. And again, you're talking about people not buying used TVs. They're buying the bleeding edge. And for the bleeding edge to be cut out is why we're doing a therapy video on it. Because first to market is not just about bragging rights. It's about putting that technology in the bank. It's like buying a ray tracing for the 2080 graphics cards and then find they're not powerful enough to do ray tracing, which they can. But you follow me, you're buying
deactivated all the time. You're never activating it.
So yeah, but when the NVIDIA graphics cards came out, if you remember, ray tracing was in one game.
Mhm.
So you bought that feeling that you'd have it down the road. I mean, I think the 2080 cards didn't even have HDMI 2.1. So there's all kinds of limitations. And you and I ran into this, and I'll get into this part of it because this is where we do come in. When HDMI 2.0 and 2.1 were phasing each other out, we recommended them thinking that 4K 60 on HDMI 2.0 would be safe for gamers and or movie watchers. We then found with HDMI 2.1 in a 120 hertz container, you were getting this 4K 40 hertz. So we found that I'm recommending older TVs because they're a better value. But now they can't take advantage of the 120 hertz mode, even though they're looking at 40 FPS. So
Right.
this goes into what you recommended even on the live stream, FOMO, is the QN90A impresses you so much. We tend to recommend last generation because it's either better or as good, but at a lower price. So tell me, like with you, I know your recommendations are very detailed. This hits you hard.
Oh yeah, because people are always asking us, "Hey, should I get last year's TV or this year?" And normally last year is the value. It's less expensive, but we always have the caveat. But if you get this year's model, the support lasts longer. In the
Yeah.
case of Samsung, it didn't last more than that year. So it would
4
have
months,
mattered
2
anyway,
months.
right? Because if you get a Q900B this year, what's going to happen next year with the Q900C? I mean,
Yeah.
maybe you're going to have more exclusive content for the Q900C. And so again, I would love to know from Samsung, was it a hardware limitation where it just didn't have the processing power last year to do what it needed to do? Maybe there's not enough memory, whatever it is, to do 8K VOD, video on demand, but the Q900B, 800B can do it. But then does it mean the 900C, the 900D may have other hardware improvements that leaves the 900B now behind? Because the 900B, right behind me over there, it's still right now $4,200 for a 65 inch. That's a lot of money. That's more. That's more than the most expensive OLED. The
Yeah.
Sony A95K QD OLED King of TVs is $3,500. You're getting the Q900B. You're paying over $4,000. So you're thinking, okay, this is the best of the best in 2022, and then next year you're left out of the loop.
Well, and I mean, does it say to you personally that the fact that this has actually happened, that all 8K TVs are going to be limited in regards to streaming? That perhaps even the Z8H, Z9J, Z9G, Q900, LG's QNED, will they all have this individualized 8K streaming? I mean, I don't mind if you say, Lord of the Rings is an HBO exclusive. I don't mind that. You have to have the HBO app or the Prime app. But you're telling me now we have a resolution exclusive to a specific model. Does
Mhm.
that mean that the 900s before will never see true 8K streaming? Because that's what they bought them for. We knew discs weren't coming.
Yeah.
But the
Forget
fact that we thought streaming would be universal, that to me is a huge kick because I've just been pushing the Z9J and those TVs because it gives somebody who wants the cutting edge to be able to buy that at an affordable price.
right.
And it's so tempting to get a Q900A. But if you just bought a Q900A, you're thinking, oh, FOMO just told me Lord of the Rings, baby. You get the popcorn. And you're like, oh, okay. Oh, Jesus. All right.
This is 4K. This is,
Yeah,
and again, it's just a trailer, but that's a sign of things to come.
absolutely.
Because the reason why it's only a trailer is obviously they don't have the bandwidth to process an entire episode. But let's say they did. And video on demand, Samsung's TV Plus, VOD in 8K, the full 20-minute episode. It's possible they do that. In the future, you're out of luck if you have anything short of whatever models they choose because of either hardware limitations or they just want to wall you out to make you sure you buy a new TV. And again, we don't know which it is, right? Is it a processing issue or is it them making sure you buy the latest and greatest Samsung in order to access 2 minutes of 8K trailer content?
Well, and to your point, it's a teaser for trailer content. It's a teaser for, when you told me that it might be a trailer, and we talked offline, I suspected that the actual show was in 4K or a 2K
Yeah,
DI, and then that maybe somebody was walking around with an 8K camera and doing B-roll. So I assume we'd
that
see
would
at
be
least
cool. That would have been great.
that would have been. So my expectations went from an episode. So at least we'll have some trailers where they're speaking to the, because I mean my phone does 8K. the
Yeah,
S22.
yes. Yeah, the Samsung, new Samsung phones. Yep.
So you would assume, at least I'm watching the actors in true 8K, and it's really not what you got. And it goes back to what we said about 4K initially, even from 1080p, was the whole generation has been upscaling.
Mm-hmm.
And in gaming, we talked about the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. We're still looking at these dynamic resolutions. We still haven't even gotten 4K 60 on an old game.
Yeah.
So we're still putting the cart so far before the horse. But the horse and the cart arrived, and it was a big, I mean, and you watched it yourself.
Horse of the cart arrived, but nothing's in the cart.
Nothing's in the cart, and it was only in the wrong barn. I mean, you basically, so again, most people, I think, seeing this promo, there's a lot of people that bought those TVs, FOMO, even LG and Sony guys were like, oh my God, that's going to be for me.
Yeah, yeah. The LG QNED 99, right? Or last year's QNED 99. And the year before that, there was the Nano 99. These are 8K TVs. You got the Z9J, the Z9K. And then now you have these walled gardens where content is walled behind not just a brand, but a model within the same brand. And that is what shocked, because I understand if Samsung says Sony,
It's
LG,
ours. Yep.
right. But not only that, it's like, no, it's only for 2022. Like,
yeah. As if you're talking, you know, it reminds me very much of back in the day with remember HD ready TVs?
HD ready. What is that?
Remember that? It was like, yeah, the TV, but you had to have a box. And there was an SD TV and an ED TV. Right. But you're talking about like the 900A is, you're not talking about a plasma. These are still relatively new panels. And we thought, I think once HDMI 2.1 became commonplace, we were all going to be in the same Cool in the Gang. We were all going to be together. And to see it delineated further, I think is crushing, especially as I will say, Samsung's biggest flaw is cannibalizing their own clientele, whether it's throttling, like as you've mentioned, the 90B and the Q95. Let them all be themselves. And I think that the 900B is an amazing panel. It's probably my favorite 8K TV this year. But to see them do that is just very disappointing. And, I think what I want to hear from you, FOMO, is we talked about buying TVs in their current form. And when you said about being supported, we always thought that meant more updating.
Yeah.
But in reality, we're not talking about updating here. We're talking about content.
Yeah.
So what is your advice about future proofing? Is it a fallacy? What do you think?
Okay, so the word future proofing, as far as TVs are concerned, right? So it's limited to TVs and technology related to home entertainment. There's no such thing. It's you buy what's available and working today. To hope or buy with the expectation that something will be added in the future. I mean, we saw the Sony X900H fiasco, VRR, and then 4K 120 cut down resolution. I mean, these are things that people didn't realize would be an issue because they keep on assuming future proofing. But future proofing is not something that brands are promoting. These are consumers convincing themselves they're future proofing as a way to rationalize why they should buy a more expensive TV. Never buy an expensive TV because you're future proofing. Buy an expensive TV because it's a feature you want now. Q900B, it's brighter. I'm buying it because it's bright now, not because next year they might make it brighter, right? A lot of people are buying TVs with the hope that, let's say, Sony, maybe they'll fix Dolby Vision, or LG, maybe they'll do this, or no. It's if we've learned anything, buy the TV that works today, and if they happen to add something in the future, you win. And if they don't, you're no worse off.
You made an excellent point too right there where you said they really don't advertise that. And you're right. And even in regards to the 900H, it was listed in that Sony spec. And it's very easy, as you pointed out and were crushed for. They just kind of slid that out. It isn't an advertising, to your point. I think we just assumed 8K would be to use 8K at some point. But us realizing that they're not, it's never going to see an 8K disc. And it's just very disheartening because, again, the future proofing isn't just think about it. Future proofing is actually a fallacy in this way. Your cutting edge is buying first. So they're already not future proofing. They're getting the first. But at the same time, they're being left out. And it's a shame because I do think that's where the fallacy comes in, that you really do have to buy what it is at this moment And we talked about that back in the day with the full, the HDMI 2.1 full bandwidth.
Oh my!
People
Remember
bought
that?
this,
Oh,
so people bought the C9 instead of the CX, and we don't know quite what that was going to mean, but it let people ran wild with that. So this has not been, there hasn't been much of an outcry for this yet. So I thought your phone call to me was very poignant, and you were just like, look, man, we got to talk about this, because we are going to have some people that aren't paying attention that are going to go home and say, let's do it. And it just shows, wow.
it's what I call a canary in a coal mine.
Oh yeah.
Right? This doesn't, I mean, it doesn't affect anyone, but you have to stop and think. This is Samsung doing something where I can see this expanding to other things, real content, real movies. They're testing the
Yeah.
waters. And the reason why we're doing this is to let Samsung know, hey, we're on to you. We know what you're doing, and we
Yeah.
don't like it. Now, it won't stop them, but it makes sure they know that consumers are educated that when they buy a TV, it's not for future proofing. It's for what they're getting today.
Yeah.
And I don't want consumers to buy anything thinking, oh, you know what, they're going to add this feature in the future. They don't want to. Once you bought the TV, why would they spend more money on that? Now, I have to give Samsung credit. They did add eARC to the Q90R. They didn't have to.
Yeah,
I don't
freaking
think anyone
5
would-
years later.
5 years later, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it was
They did
done.
it.
But that's the exception for sure.
Of
Now,
course.
other things where you might add this feature or that feature, but it's always luck of the draw. You don't know. I can't like, or they walk you back. How many firmware updates do we have this year from Samsung where it made the existing TV slightly worse, slightly dimmer?
Yeah.
They give you something like one step forward, two steps back. Like they throw out a bunch of different things that they're telling you they're improving, but then someone else is going, hey, wait a minute, this is dimmer across the board. What's happening? So sometimes it's the opposite of future proofing. You're buying a TV and then you've been thrown back into time, right? What's the opposite of future proofing, right? You thrust back to a TV that's worse. You saw the Q90, yeah, what a phenomenal TV, right? And they're like, oh wait, TV is too good. Let's start pulling back some of those features from the Q90B and the Q95B because they're in a business and they want to make sure they don't cannibalize their products. So they make one TV too good, like the S95B was too good.
Oh yeah, my God.
How much is the S95B? It's like barely above 2,000 right now.
Yeah.
Such a good TV, and it's cannibalizing everything they have right now at the 65 size.
Well, yeah, and it was cannibalizing their other entry level lineups. Their 6, their 7. But you touched on something else I want to go into. You said it might bleed into other industries. What's funny is gaming would never dream of doing this. Even they talk about the mid refresh cycle. We do discuss they still will they're not going to support certain games and leave other gamers in the cold. So you're going to say, oh, I'm going to buy this new console. A lot of the Series X games haven't been updated yet, or the PS5 games have been updated. You think they're going to update them to a PS5 Pro?
Mm-hmm.
They're always cognizant of not leaving anybody in the cold, where Samsung's like, yo, is it cold? I mean, it's interesting.
It's because they have a captive ecosystem. They don't want people leaving the Sony PS5, PS4 ecosystem for the Xbox ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the TV world, there is no ecosystem. There's no loyalty, right?
No regulation in a way.
All the TVs have, well, Dolby Vision is a great example I like to throw out there.
Yeah, you love Dolby Vision.
Doesn't care about Dolby Vision because it doesn't make them special. Like, what do I need Dolby Vision for? And Sony, frankly, doesn't care about Dolby Vision, even though they have it. As we can see, their Dolby Vision streaming is just not accurate at all, right? It's too dark, too cool.
Blue, yeah, it's very blue.
Every TV, and now we're seeing it in their OS, right? They have a special operating system with workout features and home office features and special cameras so you could do something else with it. They're trying to create an ecosystem like a PS5, like an Xbox. And if they could do that, they will wall you out. If Samsung could own Netflix, they would and wall everyone out. You got to buy a Samsung TV to watch Netflix, basically. Yeah. And that's what this is a sign of, is this 8K trailer. You have to buy a Samsung specific model to get this content. Because ultimately, I mean, to be fair, there is the 4K version of the trailer. It's not like they don't have the 4K version. They have both 8K and 4K. But among the 8K TVs, only some 8K TVs have it, and that's what we're talking about.
But wouldn't you say that it's ironic too? The fear of missing out, buyer's remorse. We talk about that. If I'm somebody who has a 900A or whatever,
Oh,
I do have that fear of missing out for about 5 seconds, and then I'm like, oh, it's a trailer, and then I'm like, Pah! Where when you first told me that Lord of the Rings, I was like, oh my god, they're releasing all 3 movies, and you're
right.
like, no, I think it's just the show, and then I got this is how we
It's just a
communicate.
trailer.
Like, actually, it's just some supplemental content. Actually, it's just the trailer.
No,
Actually, it's just the words on the screen.
no,
So,
actually, it's just a 4K DI upscale to 8K. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, wait, you took 4K source and you upscaled it to 8K, and then you lock people out. So now you're creating stress when there
yeah.
was none, right?
Yeah, so I would
It's
say
just,
that for those of you that are part of that group, you have to always know that you bought the best possible Samsung or especially for Sony. If you have a Z9G, Z9J, Z8H, you did buy the best Sony LED available. That has to be your solace that you bought the best LED they have. Samsung, there's some debate where the 900A wasn't as good as the QN90A. I know the 900A was vastly improved by the end of the year. It's the challenge we talk about. Reviewers are never going to go back to the 900A.
nope.
I know me seeing it later in the year, it was much closer to the QN90A than it was at launch. You just have to know you have the pixel density, that you do have the cleaner image, and you have good upscaling. You have to feel good about that. But I think the hope of 8K streaming coming to you is not going to come in one shot. It's not, that was kind of gross saying it like that. It's not going to be like Netflix 8K. I know there's talk of an Apple 8K, but it sounds like the faucet is going to be not as open. You're going to have it piecemealed, and that's not what we want. We assume that when 8K streaming came, it might be a nature or photography, but if you're telling me it's going to be TV specific, I won't even bother with
Is
it.
it video on? So this is a sign of things to come. It's a video on demand, exclusive to the Samsung ecosystem, the TV Plus, and I think other makers because Sony has the Bravia Core.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about that.
Could easily distribute 8K,
Mm-hmm.
assuming their TVs can process the codec for it. But let's just say 5 years from now, right? Right now, the TVs are not capable of doing that. But 3 or 4 years from now, chips are improved. They're going to process the whatever it ends up being, whatever that codec ends up being. You're going to have people buying a TV based on this ecosystem of possibly 8K movies. Bravia Core, Samsung's and Amazon partnership, whatever that is. And then you and I'll be sitting there going, wait, but it looks the same as 4K. Why are you guys stressing out, right? It doesn't matter if it's because all this is just upscaled 4K. They are not capturing movies in 8K. There is no way.
No.
That process is it's inconceivably expensive.
Well, and we spoke to this on your stream, where that the knock on 4K Blu-rays initially, where they were all 2K DIs, and then even 4K Blu-rays had 2K effects, which is why in movies like the Mad Max, you saw the flames were like cartoons. So you honestly think they're going to do 8K effects now? So, it ends up
with 2K effects because that software hasn't been upgraded to 8K.
Yeah. Right? So 8K really is the upscaling. It's the pixel density. And for those of you that are going to have a GPU, your 900As will be fine. Your Z9Ks will be fine. You'll have all that. So I think if you have an 8K TV, yes, in terms of your future proofing, in terms of gaming, as long as you have a PC, you'll be fine. But as far as streaming, and you mentioned Bravia Core, I was watching Zero Dark 30 today on the A80J with the HTA9. And the challenge with that is, or my wife says, oh, Zero Dark 30, it looks amazing. I'm like, well, I'm going to go see it downstairs on the C1 with the app. No, I'm not. So just like that, you realize if it's stuck to a specific TV, that goes against streaming, what streaming gives you. Streaming is about bringing your stuff with you. So if you have an 8K TV, we don't all have all Samsung TVs. So my point is, Bravia Core, as nice as it is, it's trapped upstairs. The genie's stuck upstairs. And here I am with an Atmos 11 channels, and I'm like, I guess I can't even. Do you follow me? So if it was, that is a problem, and it almost undermines streaming altogether.
It does.
It takes away its biggest strength. It might as well be a kaleidoscope then at that point. So I think it's just a bad look all around. I wouldn't feel bad if I was you guys that having 8K. I just think it stamps out the light of 8K streaming, that it might not be a one. We were hoping Netflix 8K or Prime 8K. I don't want to hear that it's stuck to a specific TV. And here's my thing, FOMO. If it is, it's not going to succeed anyway. So I don't see the point in doing it.
Well, or it succeeds because it keeps people out, right? What exclusive? Hey, you visit the Hamptons. This is your neck of the woods. If you keep people out, more people will buy the TV. Maybe that's the marketing plan. Hey, you want to make sure your friends cannot have this good time? Get yourself a Samsung TV.
That's a bad plan, though, because I tell you in the comments as you were coming on, people are like, "Really? This? You chose this show?
2 minutes of a trailer? This is mine."
Honey, we're spending $4,000 on this trailer. What do you want to do? Let's go.
You want to watch it again?
Yeah, I mean, come on, man. It's like, gee,
Oh, no,
if you're
the
telling
best
me that I was
part-
gonna get like all
I forgot to
the
tell
whole
you this.
trilogy, I'd be like, let's
Okay.
do it.
The trailer, you gotta love this, right? Before the trailer starts, you cannot rewind this trailer. You cannot
are
fast
you
forward this
kidding
trailer.
me?
You have to watch it through. Like, wait, what? Let's see it again.
So I had one of the first VCRs. You'll love this. It wasn't like beta. It was an actual VCR, but it was a cheap one. We didn't have much money.
Right.
You really didn't have a rewind or fast forward. It was a player. You hit
Oh, yes.
play, and then it would literally, if you remember back in the day, you had to rewind tapes to bring. Wow, we sound old.
Yeah, and you have the machine, the rewinding machine.
But you really were like, oh no, honey, we missed that spot. So we're telling me now that I can't rewind or pause it. So how long is the trailer?
Not the 8K trailer. It's very clear. You cannot rewind or fast forward. You have to watch it. You could pause, right? So I was pausing in certain instances.
Ooh, wow.
That's it. You can pause, but if you missed it, you can't go back. Oh, I missed it, right? So I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. And I know why. I'll tell you why. And it's this one, I believe, is nothing insidious. When you have that much data and you have to cache it so you can go back and forth, you can't do it.
Oh,
Even
man.
with 2 minutes, there's so much data in this 8K. Your TV cannot hold all that data and then go forward and back. They're like, look, man, just watch it through. Good luck to you. That's how far behind we are in 8K. It couldn't cache enough of the image to go back or forth.
So here's the thing. So to take this now, as far as you guys being early adopters, don't feel foolish, because honestly, what you're saying, what feature do we use most now with streaming, right? We don't watch as captive as we used to. We hit that 10-second button.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. What do you say? 10 second. Now
Yeah.
you're telling me I'm going to have to watch? No one is doing that.
That's the future of so again, take early 8K. The future of early 8K is now they have to figure that out. If you're going to do 8K, because it just hit me, you're right. This is why you can't have 8K streaming, because you're going to tell people, well, you can have 8K, but you can't fast forward or rewind. 5 minutes to cache it again, right?
Could you imagine sitting with your family and you're like, no, come sit down.
You're missing it. Oh,
what year is this? Like, am I in a movie theater? Oh, you can't go. You're gonna miss it, dude. We don't watch content that way. So here it is. I'm gonna tell you. 29 minutes in, we're gonna cut this off now. Hopefully you hung in there this long. We just discovered it as we spoke, the absurdity of it. So if you feel the fear of missing out, don't. I do think it's a straight slap in the face that it's being. But as you've just explained,
it just hit me. Why?
No one is going to watch TV like that. You're going to sit there in front of your $6,000 TV and say, are you guys ready? Everybody ready?
Once we start, there's no going back.
And then when someone, like, say the dinner's ready, you're telling me that you're going to have to get the whole group back together and say, okay, everybody, we're going to start over again. In these days of us fast forwarding 4 times, wow. Actually, no. Keep your 8K. NVIDIA guys, enjoy your consoles. But FOMO, parting shots. We got 30 minutes of our tech therapy session. I think we healed each other in this session. But give me your parting shots, and we'll say goodbye.
My parting shot is get the best 4K TV you can, and that is your best future proof, because content moving forward will look so good in 4K for the longest time. up to 120 inches or larger. I mean, I've seen projector screens. You know, I've been to projector shootouts, 4K, 120 inch, 150 inch. I'm like, why do I need 8K? It looks good.
Yeah.
And so, as far as future proofing is concerned, we're there. Streaming movies, 4K, stick with it. You're good for the next 10 years at least.
And what's funny too, what you're saying also, the Samsung QN90A at 98 inches, the X92, everyone will say, well, what about SDR? Well, if you want to watch Columbo on a 98-inch TV, it's not going to look great on a 55-inch TV. So we are all watching pretty high-end content, but I sat in front of those TVs about 8 feet away, and they did not appear soft. So 8K, but I guess this is one we shouldn't get into this, but we will quickly. You love the 900B.
Oh, yeah.
So if you were choosing the best Samsung this year, I guess your point is choose it as the best mini LED, but
Yes.
not at the best 8K. Choose it knowing it's going to be your 4K source.
And parting shot on the Samsung. I know many of you want a sneak peek. So what it did is the Q90A has better blooming control, but its specular highlights is not there. Q900B says, okay, we're going to give you the specular highlights, but in return, we're going to take away some of the blooming control, but without a camera underexposing so I could show off the blooming, you're not going to notice the blooming. It's that good. So I think Samsung made the right choice. Yes, Q90A has slightly better blooming control, but its specular highlights does not match the Q900B. Yeah. And the 90B, although has a little bit better specular highlights, the 900B kills them all. They nailed it with the 900B. And so it takes us to 8K. It's a 65-inch TV. There's no 8K. So it's a $4,200 TV that almost performs as well as the S95B, except it's a lot brighter. And that's what I'm paying for. I'm paying for that extra 500, 800,000 nits of brightness for sports. And that's what you guys have to know. When you buy a TV, what is it you're paying for today? Don't think of what it may be in the future.
And I'm going to take that as my parting shot, is if you listen to the way FOMO described the Q900B, its strengths are enough to warrant the price, it being the very high-end Samsung. But you still are going after the bleeding edge in terms of contrast ratio, local dimming zones, light control. The 900B just has that punchy light and dark. But no, if you're getting that cutting edge, you're buying the best Samsung you can. But you have to be okay with that. Leave the 8K out of it. And for me, in terms of future proofing in 8K, even if you have an older 8K, just know in regards to your GPUs, you'll be fine. But as far as streaming, I think it's a fallacy and I think it's an illusion.
Yeah. And the best Samsung TV, before we leave, I have to say the best Samsung QLED TV this year is a $33,000 4K 98-inch 5,000 nits. Just think about that. They could have made it 8K and charged 33,000, but instead they made it 4K and it's 33,000 and it's 5,000 nits and it's 98-inch. So 4K, Samsung knows it's as good as 8K. It's just it's product placement, how they're going to sell it, because I think it's a distinction as consumers, don't worry about it.
Well, you know, it's funny. We'll leave with this. People say that 8K is the 3D of, well, not really. There was plenty of 3D content. I have a ton of 3D Blu-rays that were excellent on projectors. 8K is even worse. There wasn't any content. And there doesn't seem to be any coming. And if you're telling me that I can't rewind and fast forward, I don't care how it looks.
A 2-minute video. Forget that 20-minute. You couldn't do it in a 2-minute trailer? Really?
Exactly. We should have started this saying, hey, FOMO, what do you think? Bro, you can't fast forward. Have a good night. Thanks for joining us. All right, FOMO, thank you so much for joining. Look for that live stream. Also, we're going to look for your content, the 900B review, and everyone, you guys know FOMO. If you know me, you know FOMO, but always check out his channel. Please like and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching. Always a pleasure having you. You'll see much more collaborations with me and FOMO and the guys, but have a great night, FOMO. Thank you so much.
Good night. Thanks,
All right, love you guys. Take care.